Hey guys, in this first lesson, we're going to set up our level. We're going to simply import some sprites that we need to build our very simple level. We're going to create our toad objects, which are for now just going to be objects with a sprite renderer on them so we can add our toad sprites to them. And then we're going to set up our level sprite, just one big sprite that has a couple of lily pads that we can jump from and catch those flies in the sky. So first thing I want to do is create a new project in Unity Hub, call it Toads and Fireflies, and I want to use the latest version available to me, which is 2019.2 Alpha 11. And I'm going to select 2D as my default template for this and click Create Project. And then to make sure that we're on the same page here, I want to go up to Layout, and I want to select Default, so we all have the exact same layout going into this. And I'm going to create a folder for my sprites. I'm going to call it Sprites. Then what I want to do is I want to go into my assets folder that's included in the project, and I want to just grab these three sprites. We have our toad sprites, the idle, the jump, and our little tongue is going to be shooting out and catching these fireflies, and then our background image. So let's take these and drag them in to our sprites folder. Now with them all selected, make sure we have it set to 2D and UI sprite. If you had your template set to 2D, this will be the default, so that should be okay. And then for our toads, we have three sprites in one. So what I want to do is set this sprite mode to be multiple. Then I want to go to Sprite Editor, apply my changes for the multiple there. And what I want to do is split this up into my three sprites. So I know I have three columns here. So the easiest way to do this is to go to Slice, Type, and I want to do Grid by Cell Count. And I know I have three columns. And click Slice. There we go. So we have 1, 2, 3. Now to keep this organized, I can name this idle toad, jump toad, and tongue, and apply those changes. And now we should have three sprites that we can work with right here, all from one sprite sheet. Now I know I'm going to be building my game based on a 16:9 screen. If you have more time and you want to put a bit more work in, you can obviously do this where it's dynamic and resizes and all that fun stuff. But I want to keep mine very simple and just restrict it to now by a 16:9 aspect ratio. And the first thing I want to do for my scene is add our background. Now if I take this and drag it out, this is what we get. And all I simply have to do is just resize this to kind of match, holding down Shift so we get we lock in the aspect ratio to kind of match our size of the screen here. 0, 0. And there we go. So there is our game world. Very simple. Let's select these. And I want to change the filter mode. This is a pixel art sprite, all of these are. And we're getting this weird blur from when it's trying to scale up these sprites. So what I want to do is set the filter mode to be point no filter, which will not add any anti-aliasing to our pixels as we scale it up. So there we go. And now let's create a 2D object sprite for our toad. And this is going to be by default just our little idle sprite. And we can add a color to this. So one of our frogs will obviously probably be, or one of our toads, sorry, will obviously probably be a green color. So we can just place him about where he would be. And then we'd have another toad that we can make a different color for player 2, but we'll do that in a bit. Then I want to create a folder for our prefab objects, the objects that we've already fabricated. That way we can just create new versions of that. So I know I'm going to have two frogs, and they're all going to have the same settings, except for one's going to be player 1, one's going to be player 2, and they're going to have two different colors. But other than that, they're the same thing. So I'm just going to create a prefab from that frog. That way all I have to do is drag it out and then have another frog that's set up the same way, and I can change the color on that frog. So that's what we'll be doing eventually. And then the next thing I want to do for now is create a firefly. And the sprite for firefly will be our firefly sprite. There we go. So this is what we look like at the moment. So if we have these all on the exact same Z, that means they're going to be fighting to see which one is displayed. So the simple way we can fix that is by using sorting layers for our sprites. So if I were to go to sorting layer, I don't have any except default. So I want to add a sorting layer, and I want to add a sorting layer for background. So what's going to be drawn in the background. I'm going to add a layer for player, so what things are drawn on the player level. So our frog, our fireflies, our tongue, or again, our toad. And we're going to have foreground if we wanted something floating in the foreground. Not sure we will though. And then I just set this to be player, and set the toad to be player, and set the background to be background. That way we have some nice organization so we know easily how to place things in our game world so that they're displayed correctly. And that's going to be it for this first lesson, guys. In the next lesson, we're going to work on our toad, which is going to be the most complex thing we do because he has to jump, he has to attack, and all these fun things. So it's going to take a couple of lessons to get it done, but we're going to get started on that in the next lesson. My name is Austin, and I will see you there.